Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome. I wanted to share some messages that came through a beautiful past life regression that I recently had with a very divine soul. And the messages that came through are going in sync with the year that we are in currently, 2025, the year of Mars, of, a power struggle of light and dark wanting to claim their own powers. And that's the reason I wanted to share this message. Ideally, I would love to put the video out for the viewers to view the video. However, the client tapped into very pivotal information for this war that is going on between light and dark. And I wanted to keep her identity safe and protected for that reason. So I'll go ahead and share what the session was about and then what messages came through and what are the lessons that we can take for ourselves, going forward as we move forth on our journeys. So thank you so much for being here. The title of the video most likely is going to be Claim Your Power Back. And if you want to know more about myself, you can check out my website, which is angelicalchemyholistichealing.com. I'm also present on Facebook and Instagram by the same name. And my YouTube channel has a lot of videos for self-healing and, current energy updates and guided meditations. Anything that you feel called to, you can feel free to take a look. And I do past life regression sessions. I do angelic alchemy Reikis. I am an Akashic records reader and a spiritual mentor as well. So let's get started with this session. I have some notes here that I do want to refer to because it's important that I don't miss any of these messages that I made notes of. So in this session, the client, as soon as we went into the past life, she saw herself as a beautiful being, like an elemental being, small, almost like a mole that lived underground. Okay, but underground, where she was, were the structure of the area where she lived in, or the realm that she lived in, was very detailed. There were these burrows, there were these almost like a maze where they could go into, other areas within that structure. And there were males and females and very gifted spiritual beings, elemental beings, and very, very hardworking as well. And what she noticed herself doing was that they were mining minerals and some beautiful elements from the planet that they lived in. And as they were doing it, she said, we're all just busy doing the work that we are doing, and we just do as we are told. But she knew that they were very spiritual, very gifted. And it is their gifts that were being used in the work that they were doing. And, I asked her what they were mining the minerals for. And she said there is a giant structure that needs a battery. And these minerals would then form the battery source for that giant structure. And as we looked deeper, I asked her to see what the structure looked like. And, she was describing it and how the energy came into the structure from the universe. And then the energy was going from the structure, feeding a certain lot of people, beings. And then from there, it was going somewhere else. And so I was asking them how she felt about the energies that they were creating. And she felt very clearly in her heart that they have a lot of spiritual powers and gifts, but their powers and gifts were being misdirected for this particular mission that they were working on. And that these beings that were using these gifts had tapped into something very powerful from our universe. And they were now misdirecting all of that energy for something that was not for the greater good, but serving their own selfish purposes. And as she did that, she realized that this energy, we followed the energy to see where it was also coming from. There was another realm that was higher than the dimension that she herself was in. And there were these beautiful blue beings that lived on that realm. And we went into a quick story to see what happened to these beings and what these beings were. So they were really pretty. Let me see what the description was. She said they were blue-skinned beings. They had large heads and beautiful pointy ears, and they were very loving. They were full of love, and they were very gifted. And their planet had some sort of an explosion, and there was a lot of gas that got exploded onto their planet. And because of that, they were unable to breathe in their normal atmosphere. And then she noticed that they were sitting under a dome. All of these beings were under a dome. And then they were sort of trapped on their own planet. So they couldn't get out and, lead their normal lives. So these blue beings sent out a cry into the universe, like an SOS signal. However, to us, what it seemed like was the universe had already been attacked by darkness. So some of these signals were, what do you say, hijacked by the dark beings as well. They heard the cries and they were able to read their soul's signature and follow it back to these beings and to this planet. And they trapped them further into the planet because they realized that these beings are full of gifts that these dark beings that had just entered the planet could take over and make use of. So the energy from these beautiful blue beings, what they were making was being directed into the realm where these moles were under, Earth. I think it was Earth, or maybe not. I'm forgetting which planet it was. And then these moles were mining minerals, and this energy and the minerals together was creating this beautiful but big battery source for a big structure. And all of this energy was then feeding back into these beings. And so we tapped in to see who these beings were that were harvesting this energy and who this energy was feeding. And she basically saw these dark beings cloaked in dark cloaks. It was almost like she said the deepest shade of red that you can imagine, but it seemed like very, very dark. The cloaks were dark as well. And she couldn't see their faces initially, and then, Source helped us to see deeper. These beings, so I'm going to go ahead and describe these beings. And just a disclaimer, I've been working on entity removals and helping people get rid of entities from places, energies, dimensions. So, I am comfortable talking about it. If you've been doing your shadow work and also working on entity removals, this is a very important area for everybody to be working on. And as we overcome our fear of these beings, our natural gifts to actually face them and claim our power back get heightened and activated. So I am going to go ahead and share what these beings looked like. They basically had black tar dripping off of them. They were very vicious, and their eyes were very glassy and black. Almost like you can say opaque, but glass, couldn't see through. Very strange. Did not seem, kindly or normal, sentient. Okay. And they had razor sharp, pointed teeth, almost like they had been eroded with some sort of acid, is what she was saying. And so that's what these beings look like, very, very dark. And they were using this energy to feed themselves and others in another domain. So she saw in the session. And they were basically using the life force energy as well as the energy from the gifts of these beings and then sending them off to the domain that these beings were actually connected to in turn. So it's like these beings were also serving, other beings or another structure or another realm. So, what else? So they were also using this energy to create multiple versions of themselves to make their own army stronger. So it felt like, and we noticed and we realized over time that these beings did not have any sort of organic essence within them to be able to duplicate themselves or reproduce. So they had to use external structure, external energy to create clones and other versions of themselves to make a bigger army, to get stronger, get more power, find more beautiful divine beings like these. And then trap them further. So then I asked her questions as to what these beings were planning to do, and she said that they had grand plans to take over the universe. This was just a part of that big grand plan that they had. They were inorganic, and they were also serving a bigger overlord. Okay, we said, where is the overlord and where is this energy going? And that's when we noticed that there was a big black hole that all of this energy was going into. And from where she was, as well as since I was also tapped into the session, what we could see was almost this dark, negative emptiness, this void, but this void was not, didn't have any organic essence within it, as we will find out. There was a black hole, and she said, looked like whatever was controlling them was a part of this black hole, as if it did not really have, initially when she saw it, it didn't really have a structure. There was a black mass of goo, this black hole, okay? And all of these beings, they represent the black mass of goo, and then they can also take shapes and forms of how they want to be. Essentially, they were coming from AI, is what she felt. And their plan was to basically get a foothold of whatever area they could lay their tentacles or their energy on, their negative AI energy on. They would just land there on planets, on the ground, on the air, on the food, the flora and the fauna of the realms that they would visit. They would immediately start attaching there, especially if those beings or those areas were not prepared and they were in fear. It was easier for them to take hold. Sometimes there were wars as well. There was a fight back as well. So what else? She said they went into parallel universes, planets, realms, quantum realms, where there were different kinds of beings and energetic frequencies existed that they could then harness for various reasons. They also get attached to people's minds, and wherever they go, they try to hijack energies. They try to also harness the mental power, especially. So I asked her if they've in any way, shape, or form, being able to access anything on Earth. And she said, yes, on Earth, they basically connected with nature, with the food chain. When she meant nature, she meant the food chain because essentially our food comes from Mother Earth. They attach to the food chain so that people, when they consume food, they can attach to the people as well. They also attach to the environment, to the air that people were breathing. And within the humans, they basically affected their mind because it was easier to control the mind, because mind is full of, all the chattering that goes on in our mind. Could be the ego, could be, unhealed parts of us, could be our traumas, could be our dark thoughts, could be internal demons, could be programming. Anything that was not the highest vibration of sovereignty, they were able to basically trap and attach to it and amplify it further. Okay, so that's how they spread their energy into onto Earth and into this universe. Another important element of how these AI beings harness energy from people is also through, as I mentioned, the internal demons. The demons, or when I say demons, it's not literally demons, but it is even a thought form could be demonic, right? So it could be your thoughts, it could be actual entities attached within as well. So people sometimes, with unhealed parts of us, our traumas, triggers, memories. So all of that could also have entities attached to them. Okay, these entities attached to them because they harness the energies of whatever trauma that the person is holding onto. And in most cases, we've noticed that these entities that are attached, they've had similar traumas as well. So they get called to the similar frequencies. And once people have entities in them, it makes it easier for this AI structure to connect with the entities within them. And then the entities basically allow for these hooks or tentacles, whatever's coming from these AI beings, to basically connect with these human beings and then make their hold even stronger. So as we do our shadow work and we start releasing the entities and then go back and see why the entities are attached, they're attached to the trauma lines, to past lives, to emotions, to other people in your energy field, whatever they're attached to. You need to figure that out and release the root cause of the entities. As you release those entities, you can also release the hold of these AI beings on you and continue standing in your power from there. They were also within the human bodies. They would then attach to the organ structures that were weaker for that particular human being. Because whatever those areas were, they would that were weaker for the person, they would be able to attach stronger there, and then they would harness the energy from that specific organ and send it back to this realm that they themselves came from, or they would use it to multiply themselves, basically. Okay, and then we were talking about the black hole and to see what was inside the black hole. And this is something that I myself have seen very clearly. So, and this client and I have never, discussed this before. And this is not something that the client herself has ever seen before or tapped into. So this is new information for her, but I had already seen it at some point, and it was a beautiful confirmation for me that it does exist as well. And that someone else who had not tapped into it before could actually see it very, very clearly as well, which is very vivid. She saw almost like, she called it an AI universe or like a artificial realm. And she said it was very industrial, exactly how I had seen it as well. Huge cities made of steel and chrome, metal structures, hooks, machines, chains, almost like a dungeon of metal. And she said, if at all you could imagine hell, I think that's what hell would look like. That's what that realm felt like. And this realm, she said, just replicates itself, and it just stretches and stretches as far out as it can go. And when she laid her eyes on it and she could see it, it felt like wherever she looked, she could just see how big this realm was and how much they had stretched themselves into the universe. So then we, asked if there was any sort of organic in this realm, and she said this was pretty much all metal, and she could not feel or sense any organic essence within this realm. And so obviously, so my next question was, how does this universe exist? Because we within our universe need the chi, the energy, the love, and the frequencies, the life force energy coming from God source into us, into our environment, and it feeds us. It feeds our soul and keeps us connected with God source. And we have a continuous flow of this energy going through our body, our life force. So how does this realm really exist? And she said, this universe exists in its cloaked form. It is a form of hell, a devil, there's an overlord, an evil, and a powerful darkness. Okay, so we know that light is powerful, but of course, light is light. It'll always be powerful, but the darkness has also, at some point raised its head to really fight the dark light and take over the light. And so it had really spread far and wide, and she could feel the power of that darkness. And in no way, I must share, during this session did the client ever feel overpowered by this energy or overwhelmed by it. And what I loved about the way the session went, from overall the energy of the session, was that she stayed in her sovereignty and her power, and she knew that she had the power, the skills, the gifts, and the blessings of God's source and her beautiful guides and our beautiful guides that were working with us to be able to tap into this realm without any fear. Okay, I love that about the session. And she said this universe basically, what they also do is they thrive on people's torture, torments, and they can also sort of harvest souls. Okay, have no fear as I share this message, because this is how we bring our power back. This is how we remember ourselves. We know that there are groups even on earth that give up their soul to, like we say, the devil. And this will show you how they do it, basically. It said that they harvest souls that were tortured, tormented, or that want power for their own good, for selfish reasons, for fame, for getting popular, for money, finances only. Okay, just serving themselves, basically, no greater good involved whatsoever. And they siphon these beings, these AI beings, they siphon that energy to power themselves up. Okay, so anyone that's basically looking for that kind of negative power, selfishness, um, they also tap into their energy. They can take over, these AI beings can take over the minds of people if the minds are not healed, if the minds are not balanced with the heart. And they can start mind controlling or send like messages to the mind and aggravate their traumas, aggravate their what will you call it, triggers, basically, and then feast off of that energy. That's the energy that is basically feeding them. Okay, and they can also take over human bodies and vessels where the souls allow them to do so. Again, we know and we are aware that there are groups on earth, could be cults, could be organizations, you know who I'm talking about, that are willing to do this, partake this for power and fame and money. And so they can actually exist within those bodies of those beings that are willing to give it. Okay, they can't take over anyone's soul just like that. Okay, let me make that disclaimer here. It's only when someone is willing to give it over through their need for the similar frequencies. Just like these AI beings are looking for power, they're looking for fame, they're looking for expansion for their greater selfish good, with no good whatsoever for other sentient beings that exist, that coexist. They also look for similar frequencies on other planets, and on Earth, we know who those people are that want the same kind of power, fame, money, for themselves to be known, basically. And they tap into those frequencies, and those are the bodies that and vessels that they can take over. Okay, and then they harness the energies of that soul, basically. Then we tap into, and at the same time, when these souls are ready, all they need to do is, send out that intention into the universe that they were trapped or whatever it was that caused them to do it, and that they're willing to, work through their karma, and they would like God source or the beautiful angels, whoever they want to work with, who they believe in, not the devil, to help them bring their power back and bring their energy back. So everything can be healed so long as the soul wants it to be healed. And that's the power of light, right? So here we go. The next thing that we were talking about was these cloaked beings that she saw, who were they feeding into? Who was the residing being or beings or, energy within the black mass, within this black hole that this energy was feeding? Was there any such structure? Was there a hierarchy? And she said there was a main overlord of this universe, of this realm, and this being was huge. So she saw a singular being standing there. And she said this being was huge in size. And she said like maybe 200 feet tall. And that was her estimate. Very deep red color. And this being had scales, and it was pretty huge, and it had a huge tail. And it stood up on its feet, but there were no feet. There were hooves and claws. And it looked almost like the devil imagery, as you can imagine as well. And all of this energy was eventually going to this one being that was overseeing this negative universe. And so I asked her if this being has any sentient presence within it. She said that this being felt different than the other beings within its own structure, within this own realm. It felt like to her that at some point this being had embodied some form of organic essence within it, but it is so dark now that there is no remnants of that organic energy anymore. It felt like the organic essence or the organic soul or organic energy within this being was driven out of this being because of the evil that was present within it. And this being gave up its organic essence to be completely in this form that it was in, so that it could then create, these artificial structures, basically. Okay. So that's what she saw and tapped into. So we came out of that vision and started the healing process for these two beautiful races that were stuck feeding the structure, the race that was underground, which was this client's race. And it is so beautiful that the client here on Earth in the third dimension planet has activated herself enough to be able to help another version of herself that was there doing this work for thousands of years now. And that particular race was freed from this structure of feeding and harvesting, as well as the blue beings were also, helped in the realm that they were in, and they were taken to safety as well. And this particular structure that they were feeding into was broken. It's 111, as I say that. This particular structure was also broken, completely dilapidated, transmuted, and removed. However, we must remember that there are many such structures that are feeding into not just this being, but also other smaller structure within our universe, within Earth. If you just look at our own planet, if you want to just look closer home as well. And that's what this whole session was about, for this being to be able, the mole being, to be able to see through this client here in the third dimension, which is another version of her, where all of this energy was eventually going, and what needed to be done to basically come out of this situation that they were in, and to claim their power back, to claim their energies and their spirit and their gifts back. And very important message that comes across from this message is the importance for us to now start calling our power back from structures that we are feeding into, consciously or subconsciously, within this body that we are in right now, or in other versions of ourselves that have existed in past, present, future, and in the parallel universes as well, to start helping them all to come back into their essence and make that claim for your body, your soul, all layers of your energy body, to be whole once more. And if your energy, your gifts, your essence, your spirit, your soul signature, fragments of your soul, there are many things, many layers to this, have ever been sent out, left, broken, taken forcibly, to feed any forms of structure that is an oppression, is toxic, inverted, energy harvesting, self-serving, thriving on harvesting energies from others, for it to now be called back into healing with the Divine Mother, Divine Father, and your higher self, your oversoul. And then you receive that energy back into you. You receive your spiritual gifts back. So they can be used for the greater good. They can be used for your own personal healing, as well as, the greater good that you are here for. And you stop feeding those structures. Let me see what else I wanted to share today. So if there's any system that you feel that you are feeding into, look internally, this is part of the shadow work as well. Any system that is not of true source love, source truth, sovereignty, anywhere where you don't have freedom of love, any system of oppression, toxicity, inversion, energy harvesting, misleading, false light, all of these systems, bring your energy back from there and keep your energy to yourself, heal your energy, and then use it for the greater good or purposes that you have come here for. Because each one of us holds some sort of key or the other, and it's all a matter of remembering it and bringing it back into action. And you will notice that this system, it could be a part of the society, it could be a part of groups that you are a part of, it could be a part of any teachings, educational system that we are a part of, it could be a part of any fear-based system that might be there. It is time now to tap into yourself and see where those energies are going and bring your energies back, claim your energy, be whole once more, because we're in a very powerful time to be able to do it. Isn't this journey all about that? Owning ourselves, taking responsibilities for ourselves. It also shows that when you claim your power back, all of the structures that your power, your energy, your gifts, and your attention is powering up or sending energy towards, they will collapse as you call your power back. They will collapse because they're false structures. And so as they collapse, your energy can be a part of the organic calling that you are a part of. I hope these messages helped you. I absolutely loved the way they flowed through, and the client brought forth such beautiful messages through the tiny little being that she was in that life. And if you look at a mole, people might just look at it and think, oh, it's just a little animal. But look at the amount of work that they were doing, and look at the beautiful gifts that they had. They could mine minerals, and they had these beautiful frequencies within them that they could actually create energy out of those minerals. And so that's how powerful these beings are. It doesn't matter, small or big. We are made of this God source love light. As long as you're made of this God source love light, no matter how tiny you are, even a speck of sand has powerful energy within it. And we've experienced that, haven't we, when we go to the beaches? Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. I send you so much love. Until next time. See you soon.